Well, this week marks 1 year since the Kakhovka Dam in Ukraine was destroyed, causing widespread flooding that killed dozens of people. The floodwaters also killed animals, swept away agriculture, and spread toxic chemicals. The Kakhovka Dam held back a reservoir that supplied water to nearby communities and to the nuclear power station at Zaporizhia. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky called the destruction of the dam an environmental bomb. According to a report by British researchers, about 83,000 hectares of land, an area the size of Kyiv, was flooded downstream. It also said that 567 species were affected by the hazards caused by the deluge. Of those, 28 are considered globally threatened or worse. One of those species, a bird called the slender-billed crew, is now on the verge of extinction. I spoke with Ukrainian writer and researcher Sasha Dovshik about the environmental effects of the war in Ukraine. It's actually a bit dark on your end. You're in Lviv, where I understand there are power blackouts due to the effects of Russia's war on Ukraine. It really does show. I mean, you can see the damage inflicted on many cities across the country by this war. Tens of thousands of people have been killed. But I do want to start by asking you, why then is it so important to examine the environmental impact of this conflict?
I think it is important to understand that Russia is waging its genocidal war against Ukrainian people, first and foremost, but also against the environment in Ukraine. And while people still, against all the attempts to silence them, are able to speak up, nature is a silent victim and a silent witness to this war. Since the very start of Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2014, nature has been subject to pollution through bombings, through shelling, through mining, and other effects of armed conflicts. And unfortunately, unlike us, nature has no other means to declare its rights, so we have to do it for it.
I think one example of the way that this conflict has really impacted the environment there has to be the destruction of the Kakhovka Dam back in June of last year. This was a reservoir about the same size as the Salt Lake in Utah. This really flooded a huge region. I mean, talk about the environmental impact of the destruction of that dam.
Actually, the coincidence is such that we're speaking on the 1-year anniversary of the destruction of the Kakhovka Dam. It happened on the 6th of June, 2023. When Russians blew up the dam, the polluted water, the toxic water, flooded 80 settlements, I think. I'll have to check my notes to be precise. Yeah, it was 80 settlements. And the polluted water basically destroyed natural habitats, waterways. It was flooded into the Black Sea basin. And the human casualties are still covered up by Russia's occupational forces, and natural casualties, the casualties among those inhabitants that are non-human in the region, are yet to be counted as well.
Ukraine has been called the breadbasket of Europe. How has the conflict affected the country's farmland?
The area that was flooded as the result of the destruction of the dam is actually among the most productive, the most fecund lands in Europe. It's Ukrainian famous black soil that produces the food that feeds not only our country, but also Middle East and Africa. That production was obviously affected by the flood. It is also affected by Russia's blockade of the Black Sea, which Ukraine successfully stopped by fighting its way through the Russian blockade. And now ships from Ukraine are regularly coming to Africa and the Middle East, thanks to the heroism, basically, of the Ukrainian armed forces. Ukraine is a country with no sea fleet, but it was able to free its way through the Black Sea against Russian forces.
There's also another impact, I think, on the environment that many people may not know, but Ukraine is now believed to be the world's largest minefield. What impact do the landmines used in this conflict have, not only on people, of course, but also on the land itself?
Yeah. I regularly go on volunteer trips to the occupied and frontline territories of Ukraine in the east and north of the country. That's the Kharkiv region, Donetsk region, as well as Chernihiv and Kiev region of the country. These areas combined amount to the size of Austria and Hungary combined, I think, two major European countries. 1/3 of Ukrainian territory is currently covered in explosives of all kinds. And this is a huge amount of territory. And when you go through the areas that have been affected by fighting, you can see the effects on the natural landscape. That's the trees that are broken, that also are forests that become out of touch for people. You literally cannot enter the forest because wherever there is high grass, you risk your life or your leg at the very least, because the high grass can hide landmines that have been dispersed there by Russians from the air.